Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Waller, a planner with the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development's Planning Division. And I would like to welcome everyone to this evening's meeting to Monday, September 22nd of the Lorton Core Study Plan Amendment Task Force. And on tonight's agenda, we will be having uh, after some welcomes, after a welcome from our task force co-chairs, we'll be having a presentation from the Fairfax County Department of Transportation on the transportation study and updates where things are now with the transportation study. And with that, after that presentation is given, there'll be a chance for the task force to provide some feedback, ask any questions, or provide suggestions and ideas for how you might see us proceeding. And after that, I'll also be giving you all an update on the land use scenario, where things are with the land use scenario now that the transportation study has been underway for the past several months. What we've been doing with the land use scenario, and again, once I present that information, the task force will also have chance to uh, a chance to provide any questions and feedback. And then after that, I will go uh, through a high level overview of the remaining tasks and milestones and the schedule that we are currently planning to meet for closing this plan amendment out early next year. And then at the end of the meeting, when we close out the meeting, there'll be some more time for questions and answers about anything that you hear about tonight. So with uh, with that, I want to see if our task force chairs. I see Nick is here. I'm not sure if Walter has made it, but see if our task force chairs have any updates for the good of the team.
I'm sure I probably have something. It's been a while since we last met. I think we're all really excited to kind of get this towards the end. Um, there's not a whole lot that's been happening. I think over the summer, I think we've all kind of been a bit disengaged, but now here we are. I'm back at it and looking forward to hearing the transportation study information and how that aligned with where we kind of left off and then where do we go from here. So, who's going to present here? Steve, is this John King or are you?
Hi, good afternoon. This is John. I apologize, my camera doesn't seem to be working. Maybe it's the I have it on the browser, but Tom Burke was expected to be our presenter. I know he was working today, and I don't see him at the meeting. Maybe I can try and text him and see
Yeah, if you
when
got
he's
his
hung
cell
up.
phone, yeah, give him
Yeah,
a ping.
I can try that.
You can give him a few minutes here.
Sure, thank you.
Uh-huh. We could have some transportation jokes. He got lost.
Stuck in traffic.
Stuck in traffic. So 95.
Or Route 1. Yeah.
Hey, I just got home from Route 1. It's clear.
You didn't see him on there? Maybe he's at the community center.
It's clear because they all went through Lorton as the shortcut.
They did break ground on the first home on Pennywell Drive off of 123. We now have a basement and all sorts of people working on the framing.
That's exciting. Took a long time, but yay.
It could be, yeah. They took them a while to do some of the groundwork and the foundation, but then when I went out in the morning, there was no house. When I got home in the evening, they had the first and second floor built out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you know, do they have fires?
Did they have fires? Not that I know of.
Yeah,
Fire.
they're trying to do the model first,
Oh, okay.
but who knows? They may.
I thought I said fires.
No, buyers,
Oh, fires.
buyers.
Well, they're actively selling. There's a website up there for it under Kehavnanian Occoquan Overlook. They've got somewhat of a site with some layouts there. I don't think the signage is up on 123 yet. Might be by the time I get home, but I imagine they'll be getting there pretty shortly. The ones in the back are still selling, but this will be another. There's Tom.
Yeah. So I've stopped sharing my screen, and Tom
No.
can take over.
There we go.
I apologize. For some reason, I had 7 o'clock in mind, so I am very sorry about that.
No worries.
Let me get my presentation up and ready to go. Okay.
And Walter just texted me. He's in a meeting and he expects it'll go until at least 7:30, but he will try to call in if we're still on after that.
Steve, it said sharing was not on. I had to send a request.
You should be good to go now, Tom.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you. And here we go. Okay. So, participants. Okay. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay. My name is Tom Burke. I've been John and I have been in and out of your task force meetings for a few years now, so hopefully you're familiar with this. But we are here tonight to present on the transportation findings. At least thus far, we've hit a point where we want to get some input from the task force before we finalize our assessment. And I do want to stress tonight's presentation is going to focus on the roads. But bike and ped are definitely an important part of the balance in Lorton that we see in the future of Lorton, and I think the task force has expressed similar interest that bike and ped be prioritized, and we plan to come back at a later time. Hopefully, that's okay with DPD to talk about bike and ped. Tonight we'll focus on roadways because that's what we need our consultant to really dig into. So I'm going to just get started. I think we presented to you in the past existing conditions, but I don't think we had ever gotten to the point of presenting future conditions. We call them 2045 future baseline, but they're really comp plan horizon for Lorton, 2045 for everywhere else in the region. When we do our feature analysis, we take our study area of Lorton and we bump those land uses up to comp plan per the like build out per the comp plan. And so that we have a true impact within Lorton of what the comp plan is, and the baseline is what the current comp plan, the
Gotcha.
currently adopted comp plan would allow. So with that, we do an AM analysis and a PM based on the peak hours. Most of you are probably familiar with the level of service scale. It's not the end all and be all, but it is something that actually, this is not level of service. I'm sorry, this is volume to capacity ratio. I'll get to level of service in a minute. Volume to capacity ratio is a measure that we take on the roadway segments, and it's a measure of volume to capacity. So if you're approaching 1.0, you're theoretically getting to the capacity of the roadway. So the red is where we're over 1.0. You want to be blue, green, maybe yellow. Orange is where you're starting to get closer to 1, and then red is where you're going over. So we have a little bit of red and some orange on here, Richmond Highway in particular, which probably doesn't come too much of a surprise. But this is if the current comp plan land uses were to continue to be the vision for Lorton. We always, for comp plan amendments, we want to have the comparison of what the current plan would yield versus what the proposed or preferred land use would yield. So in the morning, we do have some roadways. Lorton Road is getting close to, especially in the morning, eastbound is getting close to 1, or it's about 0.8. Richmond Highway going northbound into the fort and points north at the core of DC is starting to get close to 1, if not exceeding 1. In the afternoon, you'll notice some of these colors flip. Richmond Highway becomes more congested in the southbound direction, Lorton Road in the westbound direction. Makes sense with the traffic patterns in the region and in Lorton. But we're still not too bad. So if the current comp plan were to come to fruition, we'd have some problems, but we could probably handle them. And then the level of service is a measure that we take at the intersection level. So each intersection has 2 boxes on them. They are the AM and PM. AM's on top, PM's on the bottom. And the number within the boxes are the seconds of delay, the average seconds of delay. And then the colors are the level of service. Green is obviously really good. Yellow is considered pretty good, at least per the comp plan. Orange is exceeding the comp plan standard, and red is very much exceeding the comp plan. So in the morning, I've got some issues around 95 and Silverbrook, Richmond Highway, but nothing too bad. And then in the afternoon, I think it gets a little worse. You can see the intersection of Lorton and Lorton Station gets pretty bad. It depends on your perspective. 86 seconds is 1 1/3 minutes of delay, a little bit over 1 1/3. That's the average. Obviously, some people are going to have more than that. Some people are going to be less. Depends on how you hit the signal, if you're close up to the signal or if you're further back. And then again, the intersections around Silverbrook and 95 are a little bit problematic. So that is how the comp plan would play out, at least per our estimations and our modeling. Not perfect, but also not too terrible. But as we all know, through the lengthy land use process where you worked with the DPD staff and their consultant Renaissance planning group, you did increase the intensity a little bit within the opportunity areas within Lorton. So now that I'm going to get to the future with the plan amendment land uses. So this is if the land uses that the task force assembled were to be put into the comp plan. This is our estimate of how things might change. So again, and I put these back to back so I can toggle, but this is the AM peak hour volume to capacity ratios. So I think you'll notice, hopefully, yeah. So this is the baseline with the current plan. This is is Lorton with the proposed land use. So you can see it gets a little bit more red, a little more orange. So some of the segments, the ones that you're probably would have guessed, Lorton Road and Richmond Highway, they go from approaching 1 to getting closer to 1, or in some cases exceeding 1. And then in the PM peak hour, there's a lot of red, and this is what it was with the current land uses versus what it is with the proposed land uses. So you can see that we've got our work cut out for us. If these are the land uses that we want to be included in the new vision for Lorton, we've got some congestion that would be anticipated to build up beyond what would have been there with the current plan. And again, level of service. I'm sorry, where are the levels of service? I think I got rid of the level of service. But to fix the issues, we explored the first alternative we looked at were what we considered kind of local but major facility. We've talked about this in the past. I think the task force was a little hesitant, but we wanted to test it. What if we were to reduce Lorton Road to 4 lanes? But then to kind of offset that, we increased Lorton Market and Gunston Cove to 4 lanes. So instead of having a 6 and a 2-lane connection to Richmond Highway, what if it was 4 and 4? You could see we also took the BRT recommendations from the Department of Rail and Public Transportation study from 10 years ago. They had a station up at Pohick Road. The public was always against that location because of the proximity to the Pohick Church historic site. And then we had a site, I'm sorry, a BRT station around Lorton Road. And then we had a BRT station down here at Gunston Road. We basically got rid of these top two. We moved this one down to Gunston Plaza to be more central to Gunston Plaza. We added a new stop that had not been contemplated before at the library and the rec center. And we kept the station at Gunston Road. So we kind of shifted things down to more of the Lorton central area. So these would be the 3 BRT stations. And again, the BRT, for those not familiar or maybe needing a refresher, the BRT phases 1 and 2 are currently being designed. Those are the 2 phases that would go from Huntington to Hybla Valley and to Fort Belvoir. Phase 3 is this segment that would go to Woodbridge VRE. So there would be buses in exclusive center turn lane or center transit ways at some point south of Gunston Road because of Prince William County's desires to not rebuild the bridge over the Occoquan. They said the buses are going to have to be in mixed traffic on the bridge. But once they get into Fairfax County, if Fairfax County wants to put them in a exclusive center median transitway like we're doing up from Fort Belvoir up to Huntington, or at least to PennDOT, that's what we assumed we'd have here. So this is our alternative one for mitigations. And we thought, let's see how that might help things. I think it gets things a little bit better, but not. So this is with the alternative one mitigations. This is what it was without the mitigations. So it actually, and remember, this is where we kind of flipped Lorton and Gunston Cove to be 4 and 4 instead of 6 and 2. And as you might have guessed, Lorton Road becomes pretty much more congested because we've reduced the lanes from 6 to 4. And Gunston Cove actually looks like it can handle. I mean, it wouldn't get congested. So there's much more demand for Lorton Road than for Gunston Cove Road. And I know people are going to say, well, yeah, we should have known that, but we wanted to test it. In the PM, similarly, you went from kind of orange and yellow to dark orange. So again, Lorton Road with the road diet concept gets worse, and it doesn't really fix what's on Richmond Highway. So we thought, what could we do that's more regional? That was our alternative 2. Here we go. Alternative 2. We wanted to get a little bit more creative. We had discussed with the task force in past years whether or not we thought Furnace Road, if we had more connections to Furnace Road. So we connected Lorton Market Street to Furnace Road. We did not connect to I-95. We didn't think VDOT would be crazy about the idea of having interchange so close, but we thought, what if we could make Furnace Road more of an attractive parallel, maybe as a means of getting in and out of Lorton. We also, this one probably would be controversial, but we tested it anyway. What if we put express lane ramps? As you know, right now there's express lanes on 95, but there's no express lane ramps at Lorton Road. I think the closest ones are Fairfax County Parkway to the north and 123 to the south. What if we put express lane ramps in the area, not on Lorton Road, but on Powick Road? You know, again, understanding that the citizens and the residents up on Powick Road may or may not like the idea of that, but we tested it just to see if we could get more of a regional shift. And in the AM peak, I think the biggest takeaway is we start to see congestion up on Powick Road that we didn't see before. That makes sense because all of a sudden Powick Road's becoming more attractive because there are people that would want to use those express lane ramps. But you can see in Lorton itself, things are getting, you know, instead of 0.91, you're getting down to 0.77. So you're improving the congestion a little bit. Richmond Highway, unfortunately, there's not much we can do to fix Richmond Highway. And keep in mind that we are assuming 6 lanes on Richmond Highway, still pretty congested. forecasting out into the future. And then in the PM, remember we still have a lot of red. Pohick Road gets really congested in the afternoon. Talking about 1.31 type BC ratios in the south direction, people coming home, and still 1.07 going in the northbound direction. So there's probably demand for the express lanes in both AM and PM peaks, but you still have a lot of red. This was the this is with the proposed land uses and no mitigation. You can see it gets a little bit, generally it's worse. It depends on the roadway link. And then, so we weren't finding the magic ticket, if you will. So we started to think about what we could do. How can we just move traffic around? And this may or may not, we want to get feedback from you all. So I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon, but this is the third and final alternative that we looked at, where we said, what if we could create more connections, more attractive connections, like local grid links between Lorton Station and Pohick, maybe a parallel to Lorton Station from the new connector down to Lorton Road. This connector down here from Gunston Cove Road to Richmond Highway was already in the comp plan, so we tested that as well. And perhaps the controversial one would be connecting the VRE station down to Lorton Market Street to create that triangular effect in the center of Lorton, where you could perhaps really spread trips out so that not all the trips have to go through Lorton Station. And we also did consider some connections in here in the central area here, but we actually had, our model already had links in it that represented some of those local connections that connected down between Lorton Market and Richmond Highway and up to Lorton Road. All right, so this is alternative 3. You can see that things are looking a little bit better. This is without mitigations. Lorton Road actually, Lorton Road is actually pretty similar, but you can see Lorton Market gets a little bit better. And we'll be able to go back to, I know I'm going pretty fast. If anyone wants to relook at any of these in more detail, we can definitely go back and look at them. In the PM, remember it was really red. It's still red, but it's not as red. This is without mitigations. It actually helps quite a bit. Sorry, I keep losing track where I am. So, sorry. This is with the alternative 3. It fixes some of the issues in the PM. The PM is definitely the more problematic peak, which you may probably already be aware, and it's going to be harder to fix. So I put this up here, but I know that there's a lot more discussion to occur. But I just wanted to go over the different types of mitigations. We definitely had trouble figuring out what kind of connections and new connections we could test that were realistic, that could potentially create shifts in the traffic patterns in Lorton. We didn't find the golden ticket. Steve's going to talk a little bit later about land use. I don't know if that's part of the ultimate mitigations, but we would like to hear from you all what kinds of mitigations that you see here, or even other types of feedback you might have in terms of what you think would work better for Lorton, and we can have a discussion about those. So I'm going to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Tom. Everybody should see a raise your hand feature at the bottom beside the chat or the share. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Going back to the Route 1, I mean, one of the things I think a lot of people don't maybe recognize unless you live here is there's not a lot of people go up and down the Route 1 corridor between like Pohick Road and or Telegraph Road and further north. I wouldn't anticipate regardless of what we do in the downtown Lorton area as far as a core, more people coming down than would be already projected to come down there. just because of the distance, you know, north of Fort Belvoir, you're not attracting people to come down this far south to visit that type of entity. I wouldn't have thought that this would have had an effect on the Route 1 corridor between like Pohick Road and further north. Although, you know, clearly there's a big issue getting into Woodbridge where most of that traffic is likely going, since Mason Neck is kind of frozen density and there's not much else density wise going in there. Like the increases are based upon what for future potential traffic going south.
So, I mean, we're actually doing quite a bit for Richmond Highway. We are assuming the BRT. We're assuming the currently planned recommendation for 6 lanes. So this is actually, if you can picture in your mind, like what we're planning for further points north with 6 travel lanes and and BRT in the center. That's what we would have through Richmond Highway, through Lorton down to Gunston Road. And at some point, the center BRT lanes would kind of drop off. The buses would go into mixed traffic. They'd cross the bridge. As I mentioned, Prince William had no interest in rebuilding the bridge. So they basically said you're going to have to live with mixed traffic. But I don't know how much demand we'd have going from Lorton to Woodbridge. I'm thinking the BRT to the north is probably going to satisfy Lorton trips more so. And that's going to be the higher quality BRT type BRT. But there's just such demand in this part of the county between the Occoquan and the Potomac and everything. We're kind of in a funnel and there's just not that many options. 95 and Route 1 and Ox Road are pretty much the options. And I think all 3 of them are pretty well congested and they're already pretty well built out. Like I said, Richmond Highway has another couple lanes you could put in with BRT. So
Certainly, you know, I don't know where or how you could make this possible, but coming down 123 from, say, Fairfax, there are a ton of people currently that pass over the town of Occoquan River and are making that right onto Old Bridge Road. There is literally, I don't know how far north you have to go to find another connection over that Occoquan River. But it would be way, way back there. You know, there's really
is it called Yatesford?
Ford.
Yatesford?
Yatesford.
Yatesford. And that, I mean, that's way up there.
Yeah, there's no connection otherwise to get across there into the lake, like the Lake Ridge section.
No, yeah, Yatesford takes you over to the southern part of Manassas where the Prince William Government Center is. There are not a lot of crossings of the Occoquan, unfortunately. I mean, well, unfortunately in some ways from a traffic circulation standpoint, but I'm sure environmentalists are pleased that there aren't a lot of crossings. Just like on the north side of the county, you know, every now and then we talk about how we need another connection to Montgomery County in Maryland, sorry, and yeah, that's also something that probably will never happen, but you never know.
Yeah, Yatesford Road is the next one. So let me see here. Go ahead, Tim Reiser.
So my overall basic question has really to do with how much should Lorton be responsible for dealing with the traffic into Prince William, in and out of Prince William County? Because that's constantly when I'm going through it, especially now that the bridges, or I guess one of the lanes has been closed on 95. Lorton's been really, really packed and bad because everybody's coming through Lorton. But it seems like some of our goal of this project was to not make us that cut through, and therefore one of the best ways to try to do that is to make it not as desirable of a cut through, and you could do that by slowing the speeds and the cut through traffic down. So in some respects, I'm not sure I want Lorton to be that good fast cut through, because it's just making it really bad for Lorton.
I appreciate you mentioning that. That's something I meant to say earlier is we are balancing, like I said earlier, we're going to be balancing the needs of bicyclists and pedestrians with those of the cars. We want Lorton Road to be the main street for Lorton, but does that mean we want cars free flowing and, at high speeds, or are we okay with certain levels of congestion on Lorton Road? And that's a great point. If we decide that we're okay with more congestion on Lorton Road, then it probably becomes less desirable for those that get off 95, shoot over to Ox Road and go down to Old Bridge. Perhaps they are more likely to stay on 95. I know VDOT has good intentions with 95. They built that auxiliary lane. Nick actually told us last week, I wasn't aware that they built the auxiliary lane in the southbound direction only to close it shortly after. I'm
Right.
not sure
It's
why they
not-
did that.
Well, it's supposed to be closed. I mean, it's supposed to be resolved, I think in about 6 to 8 months. And then they'll open it back up again, and that will take a lot of the pressure off. But in general, listen, any time you're going through the center of town, of any town, I don't care if you're going through New York City, any towns or anything like that, you're going through the town, you should expect that to be a slower process and to go through the slow. And honestly, I don't think that's a negative for us. I think that's a positive, because we want that to be not a spot where people are just running through that and trying to get through that area. We want people to go slow and to see the opportunities and be able to look at that and say, oh, there's a good restaurant, or there's some people out there. So I don't see it as a negative. I think that's okay to have some of those extended travel times through that corridor.
Mr. Sargent.
Thank you. Tom, I'm curious is if you did any estimated timing for the impact of the loading areas for BRT and the other components. For example, where people get on the BRT, where people move their, go from Lorton Road onto 95 north or south, and what the time is. Do you have any data on what that influence is, or is it just mixed in with the numbers you have?
Fortunately, I think it's mixed in. We didn't have the budget to get too detailed on the BRT. I know Department of Rail and Public Transportation did a more detailed study 10 years ago, but it was based on the current land uses, which did not wind up showing very good ridership for the BRT. We've been talking with DPD about how intensifying at Gunston Plaza is probably a really good thing, because that should help with the BRT ridership. But in terms of riders, ride times and ridership, we don't have updates for that. Can ask her. Sorry.
I'm wondering if you might be able to get some general information about the kind of time lag that creates or does not create for these stopping points, for these loading points. Even if it's, I see, the challenge is you don't have the current data, but I'm sure they have some data somewhere that gives you an estimate, because it may help you parse out what the loading areas are, what the on-site, moving on to traffic sites are, and what their impact is. It may give you some room for flexibility for future stuff, I would think.
I do know that the phases 1 and 2 of the Richmond Highway BRT, they are planning for off-board fare payments. So you would walk up to the station and you would pay your fare at a machine, so that there's no line of people, waiting to pay. You pay off-board, and I know that's one way of minimizing delay on the routes for the BRT. We could probably get, I don't know if Vanessa, who's leading the phase 1 and 2 design, has any kind of estimates for the amount of time that they envision BRT, the vehicles would. You're asking about how long the buses might stop at each station?
Yeah, and how much time, you currently have for cars going trying to get onto 95 north from Lorton, for example, and what that does to hold up traffic. It may give you some places to parse out what you can do differently or not. I don't know, but
theoretically, the BRT vehicles shouldn't impact traffic too much, because they're going to be in exclusive median running ways.
yeah.
So as the buses are stopped in the median, vehicles are still flowing as well as they can in their general purpose lanes. But that's not to say that it couldn't cause some kind of delays. So we'll talk to our BRT team and see if there's any inclination on what types of delays might be incurred.
Okay, thanks.
Miss Henley.
Hey, good evening. Thank you, Tom, for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. So, according to alternative one, you were describing the BRT stations, the possible BRT stations at Gunston Plaza, Lorton Library, and Gunston Road. To my understanding, the BRT will not even come past Fort Belvoir. So why are we still considering this? That's question one. And if there's a stop at Gunston Plaza, what does the turnaround for the BRT look like? How does that look? You know, you don't have to. I'm gonna give you a series of questions here, and you can take them, or if you want to stop and answer that, that's fine. You let me know how you want to proceed. Gunston Gunston Cove Road is currently, we worked hard, the community out here worked hard to get no through trucks here. Now, if that road is widened, trucks will definitely roll through the communities because they do now, even though it's no through trucks posted. Right? So those are things to consider. On alternative two, the alternative two modification, I see that there's consideration, it's in the mix for a possible express lane entrance at Pohick Road, right? Prior to the express lanes, Lorton Road had a HOV entrance. So you can catch the jump on the HOV, but that was closed down to, build out the express lanes. So, I think that should be strongly considered. If there's going to be another entrance to the express lane, put it back at Lorton Road, because if I'm looking at the geography at Pohick Road, it may, and I'm not an engineer, so I'm not even going to try, but it will be a significant buildup in order to make that happen. Is that a true statement?
If we put the express lanes at Pohick, we're hoping that you would be able to just fit them in the middle and not impact. But you're asking about buildup of traffic?
No, it's going to be, I'm trying to envision how that would happen, because Pohick is actually going over the express over 95. So some kind of way you're going to have to build it up. And I don't know how you all would do it, but those are my questions.
Okay.
If you would
Sure.
take it into consideration and address them, I'd be greatly appreciative. And one more thing I forgot, I'm looking at my notes here. The late Congressman Connolly made sure that $850,000 were allocated for a pork chop at Silverbrook and Lorton Road, that intersection. Was that even included in this study, or is that just off? That's not a part of it.
Well, I could start with that one and go backwards, but if a pork chop, our traffic forecasts are high level. I don't think a pork chop island would affect the traffic patterns. So we're not prohibiting the pork chop, but we didn't necessarily specifically model for it either, because I don't think that a pork chop island would affect the model results. So I don't think there's any issue with the way we did our analysis, I think the pork chop island is still on the table, and perhaps should be included when we get to the end as a maybe an interim or shorter term recommendation. You had mentioned the BRT to Fort Belvoir. It is currently being designed to end at the Pence Gate where the hospital is. So phase 2 would go, it would have stops at Pendaw, Beacon Groveton. It would have a number of stops at Hybla Valley and Gum Springs. It would stop at Jerry Highland Center, Woodlawn, and then finally end at the Pence Gate at Fort Belvoir. The buses would actually turn around. I think they would, don't quote me on this, but I think the buses would turn in and use the existing turnaround right outside the gate, and then they would go back northbound. When this section of the BRT is eventually built, the buses would continue to stop at Fort Belvoir, but then they would continue on to Lorton and on to Woodbridge. And actually, one question that hasn't been answered, originally Accotink Village was thought to be the southernmost stop on the phase 2 of the BRT, but the BRT team decided that it wanted to stop at Pence Gate. So we might actually, when phase 3 is constructed through Lorton, we might want to put a stop at Accotink Village as well. But there is BRT to Fort Belvoir as part of phase 2, which hopefully, I don't know, John, if you have is it 2032, 2033, when they're aiming to open?
That sounds about right, but
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, that's correct, Tom.
Okay. And
So,
then,
so Tom, so the Pence Gate has been closed for a couple of years now. So that's going to be the BRT stop.
isn't Pence Gate the main gate?
So, you said it's stopping at the hospital, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that gate is closed. If the Tully Gate is the main gate,
I
the
thought
Tully Gate is,
the Tully Gate's the
pardon
24-hour gate, right?
me? The
I thought
Tully
the
Gate is the Tully Gate is the 24 hours, the main gate. The Pence Gate has been closed off, and right across the street from Pence is the newer
Right.
gate.
For the north, yeah.
So
Well, I had not heard that. I'll have
so
to-
it's been closed. It's been closed for a minute. So to have the BRT stop there, I'm trying to understand it unless there's an agreement with the base commander that that gate will be open to that traffic and there will be security at that particular gate. Because right
Definitely.
now, those gates, the operating hours are very limited.
We'll definitely have to check in with the BRT team on that one, because I don't know if I had it backwards, but I thought the Pence Gate was the main gate, although it wasn't 24 hours. And then the Tully Gate was more for employees and it was 24 hours.
Mm.
But we can look into that. Again, the BRT won't be
Correct.
opening until 2032, 2033. So I would hope that the fort would eventually open the Pence Gate back up by then, but we can definitely ask the
That's-
BRT team for some more information on that.
Right, that's just something to consider, to definitely consider.
And then, yeah, the
Gunston Cove Road,
Gunston Cove Road being
spoke
widened.
about
Yeah,
widening that road.
we tested that under alternative 1, and it just put too much, we think that it put too much pressure on Lorton Road. Basically, because we were simultaneously assuming that Lorton Road would go from 6 to 4 lanes. And I think you raised a good point as well about the neighborhoods around here on Gunston Cove, whether or not that should become a 4-lane road. It didn't strike us as a good solution, but we wanted to get your input on that beforehand. But yeah, you could see lowering the lanes on Lorton Road. I mean, we talked earlier about whether congestion on Lorton Road would be acceptable and perhaps some level of congestion, but this may have been a little bit too much. I don't know if we want to reduce Lorton Road to 4 lanes, but your point about the trucks is definitely noted. If they're prohibited, they shouldn't be on there, but I understand the concern that if you make it a wider road, more inviting, trucks may just jump on it and use it anyway. But that's something to consider. Then,
And that was it, in addition to the express lane entrance.
we tested the express lane ramps at Poick because we were afraid if we put the express lane ramps at Lorton Road, that it would become too much of a magnet. And if Lorton Road is already overburdened with cut through and people on the general purpose lanes, if you had the express lane ramps, it might become even more of a magnet. And that's what we actually found with Poick was when we put the express lane ramps up on Poick, the connections on Poick Road to the ramps became very congested. So it probably would have had a similar effect on Lorton Road. And for one reason or another, we've actually asked VDOT a number of times about express lane ramps at Lorton Road, and they just don't seem to think it's a good idea. Maybe they don't think they have room to do it, because usually you have to be able to get the cars out of the middle part where the express lanes are, and the interchange is already kind of bulbed out. I'm not sure if VDOT thinks that it's a feasible proposition to put them at, although you said that there were HOV lanes, so I'm assuming the HOV lanes were just kind of in the middle. Maybe we have other examples on I-66, for example, where they're pretty simple. The lanes just come up to the street like Stringfellow or Monument on 66, and they provide connections. It doesn't have to be too extravagant, but so again, we can reach back out to VDOT again and see if we can get more explanation as to why Lorton Road has been kind of vetoed as a potential express lane ramp location. But I remember when Tom Bashani was director, he would have me check in with VDOT every a couple times a year, and because Supervisor Stork wanted some updates, and they were just like, no, we studied it, we didn't think it was a good idea, but we can try to dig up some more information on that. But regardless, wherever you might put express lane ramps, what we learned from our modeling exercise was that that roadway becomes even more of a magnet for traffic, because everyone's going to want to use it to get to the express lanes. So the question is, do you want to, there might be some benefit to having express lane ramps on Poick or Lorton Road for the locals, but it seemed to us like the regional traffic kind of swarmed Poick Road in order to use it to get into the core, perhaps a little quicker. Then I think
That's it. That's all I had, Tom. Thank you.
sure.
Dale.
Thank you, chairs. Mr. Burke, thank you. Excellent. You guys did some visioning out there yourself. A couple of thoughts on your version 3, where you were perhaps cutting through from VRE onto Lewis Chapel. Right in about the 5th or 6th dot up there, you are in an environmentally sensitive area, which we were told when we were looking at sites for the Lorton Community Center, that area was completely off limits. Not even think about doing anything in there. It was some kind of vegetation in there that is only other place is similar to it is a small patch down in the Dismal Swamp area down by Hampton. That's it. So I don't know that I don't know whether transportation would supersede whatever those environmental areas are, but that is something to consider within that. I understand that Pohick Road widening is off the table from VDOT. They were looking at a 4-lane widening at one point in time, and now that's completely off the table. Not even that was the latest information we just got last month from Supervisor Stork's office in there, and Angelique was very good in doing the follow-up on that. So I don't know whether if you go to add some kind of hot lanes or something added at Pohick Road onto 95, or whether or not that's going to cause that to be revisited specifically. And I think those would have to be done hand in hand. I mean, you couldn't do one without the other just from volumes. The Telegraph Road, Pohick Road across from Pohick Church, moving the BRT station or BRT stop. There was I'll probably defer to Mr. Sargent because he was around on the planning commission at that time. But there was a discussion at one time about converting industrial areas into also housing areas and changing some of the zoning rules. You probably guys will know that more than anyone in planning. If that were to ever change, that whole stop, that would have to be revisited because there is a significant amount of land back there and buildings back there that could be reused within that. So that's just something to think about. But perhaps the biggest thing that jumps out at me in all the scenarios we looked at is we are clearly taking off the table in every way, shape, and form any kind of pedestrian thoroughfare on Lorton Road. Lorton Road is still such an arterial, such a traffic impact area that crossing over, finding ways to get across, crosswalks, lighted crosswalks, armed crosswalks, I mean, whatever you want to call them, the volume of that is just not going to allow that. So I think that's a significant shift for us to look at in terms of like density and what we're doing. And so that kind of makes you stop and think, over there by Armistead and area, should that whole area, just that road go away and all of that be encompassed into the Gunston Center planning? Should that, and I know you can say you can't take a road away, but maybe that's something worth thinking about, just for the future for density in order to support some of the other changes. And as far as going all the way over to Furnace to Fernacce Road, my favorite road, connecting, that's kind of a fascinating idea. I'd like to see more of that, how that could develop out. That could be something that could help alleviate. And I didn't quite get all of the graphic on that to understand how that would happen along there. But that could be pretty fascinating. Although I'm assuming, I don't know where that Furnace Road, where that would parallel at. We've got Overlook Ridge Park hopefully coming on within the next year. And after Overlook Ridge, you're pretty much right up against 95. So I think I'd need to see how that does that. So how that would affect that park area. And I absolutely agree with Wendy, cutting across Lorton Station or Lorton Marketplace, making that 4-lane. I don't see that. That would benefit truck traffic that will ignore the laws and come through, because I already do. So I don't see that enhancing anything, and especially if we look at redevelopment of that whole shopping area and increasing density and housing there along with it, 4 lanes just, again, we go back to the Lorton Road scenario where you'll never get across it. So finally, I know Virginia Passenger Railway, VPRA, VRPA, they're also closing off 2 lanes of Lorton Road starting in January as they look to put the 3rd rail in. That'll go about another 1,000 feet south of the Lorton VRE and Lorton Road. So I mean, there'll still be more impacts along that line too. So some things to think about. I think I really do need to look at the graphics on that a little bit more to be better prepared to ask questions. But thank you for your presentation, sir.
Thanks. Thank you.
Did you call on me?
If I would unmute, you would hear me. Go ahead, Linwood.
Okay. Thank you very much for a thorough, well thought out, easy to understand presentation. I especially liked the review of adding internal connections, which generally I'm in favor of to make the flow within the community as good as possible. Backing up just a second, or frankly, backing up 5 years, I really thought the main reason we were doing this exercise is to try to have a community that had enough rooftops to support more businesses, more small businesses that in a lot of cases in the central core were walkable, those kind of things. And we kind of determined we didn't have enough rooftops to support what we had. With that said, any of these ideas of reducing traffic on Lorton Road, I find very short-sighted. If we're trying to get people into our community to support more of the niche kind of businesses, that we say we want as part of this exercise, again, we want people to be able to get into the community. We have a big problem in the community, Rick Hausler used to call it the mighty Mississippi running right through the middle of the community, being 95. And the only way to get those people on the western side of 95 to the eastern side to these businesses to make them more, viable and more people use them is Lorton Road right now. There's not any options really. And the only way to get the people on the east side to things on the west side, like any of the revitalization of the prison properties, workhouse, that kind of stuff, they all depend on Lorton Road and going through Lorton Road. So I really think we're shooting ourselves in the foot to try to do anything that gridlots or slows down the flow of traffic on Lorton Road. And when you say, oh, we need to discourage people, we need to discourage them from using this cut through. Well, there's not options. Now, we did see one option on the table, the Furnace Road thing that Dale was just talking about. It's like, it's an idea. I like ideas. I like something new. And we need to study it more, obviously, but at least it's thinking of an option that takes the place of Lorton Road. But we can't cut off Lorton Road. We can't limit Lorton Road. That's like our main artery. It's our lifeblood from one side of the community to the other. Anyway, those are my impressions of where we're at. But again, excellent presentation. I think it reveals a lot. And then again, I've found it to be pretty insightful. Thank you.
Mr. Sargents, again.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back and highlight Dale's comments regarding new residential units, because preaching to the choir here, and Christine and company, I'm sure has heard this very, very much at the board level about the need for new affordable housing. And I don't mean just low income. I mean a whole range of affordable housing, given the costs. We sat through a plan the other night at the Planning Commission where we heard, some great creative designs in other parts of the county and stuff. It looked wonderful, provided it. And the starting point for that home was $800,000. It's a huge, huge problem to find quote unquote affordable housing. And we too often think it's just low income, when it's really that next level generation of workforce for Fairfax County and elsewhere in this region. So you're going to get probably, I would think, welcome to comment, beyond me, but I think you're going to get more pressure for that too. And building that in to make it work means you're going to need to find ways to make this traffic move even better, because this is a prime spot. You've got, the shopping center areas, the places, parallel to the train tracks. You've got some really, really good areas for residential units that could be far more affordable than you would see elsewhere in this county. It's a big, big problem. So I'd appreciate maybe if staff could provide some comment on that going forward, so what the future is. Everybody, Dale and everybody have cited this, but I think it may be helpful to have some idea of where you're going with with housing numbers for this area for the future, and how you keep them affordable. So this is a you know, a good affordable place to live, and it has future to it. So my 2 cents.
Tim Reiser.
I just want to say that we're talking about a couple of different things. One is housing and affordabilities and whatnot, and clearly we need more housing available that's under $1 million. I think that's what we need.
Yep.
So certainly there's that. The second part though is and Lorton Road and traffic on Lorton Road. It's no doubt for me to get through Lorton and having this as a get through Lorton, having it slow down isn't good for me as a Lorton resident in that respect. On the other hand, we have to recognize that a predominant reason we're trying to get through Lorton always is because we're going someplace else. We're trying to get out of Lorton so we can do something that doesn't exist normally in Lorton. And so there's some of that. It's not all of it, but there's certainly some of that. But the thing and the challenge that I'm trying to reduce, or I'm happy to have a traffic increase in some respects. It's a traffic increase in a stretch that is right at between Richmond Highway, Route 1, and Silverbrook, coming through there in the evenings as people go home, and the opposite and other times as well in the mornings. But that's not the times that Lorton residents are going through that. That's the times when everybody, Prince William County residents are coming through. And from that standpoint, if it slows it down in there, fine. And I think the comment also made and Linwood made was an accurate one, which is we're also bringing things that would bring people to Lorton. And therefore, there's going to be some bringing in for that. And yes, it will be slow at there. But that's what you have in those kinds of areas. I was over in the Mosaic District just last weekend, and driving in the Mosaic District, I'm going very, very slow. And we have to go slow. It's appropriate to go slow. It's a place where we were in our meetings. We also looked and thought, could we create a walk across? And is there maybe a medium spot in there? So we want that to be a place where people are going slow, because slow environments like that are conducive with people hanging out and being around. If they were going fast, it would be problematic. So that is the kind of thing I think we're looking for and is a necessary outcome. So my 2 cents.
Thank you, Tim. Over to me. Just speaking for where I live, which is on kind of the western side of 123, my places to go generally are getting on currently 95 South or Old Bridge Road, which is difficult after about 11 a.m. To get anywhere, or I'm faced with trying to get up to Springfield, either Hoos Road or 95, which also after probably 10 a.m. gets very difficult. So no matter where I'm going to go, currently I'm going to face traffic. It's just nothing. There's no magnet on the other side of 95 to draw me there. I guess I would rather sit in traffic and be going down Lorton Road to get to something in Lorton, rather than going and sitting in traffic trying to get south or north from where we are. And there's literally nothing west until you hit, Fair Lakes, which is a good 17 miles away from me. Catherine.
Hey, sorry I'm late. I'm really looking forward to watching the recording to hear about the presentation. It sounds really fantastic. And please let me know if this has already been touched on. I do, to piggyback on Tim's comment, I do believe that our traffic problems are directly related to 95 South. The people that are going through are doing that because of all the extensive backups on 95. And I was wondering if we are going to have any changes to that, because without that, it's going to continue to paralyze our community.
That's a little out of, I guess, VDOT's or FC.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's not addressed here. Okay.
Well, I mean, it needs to be addressed. There's no doubt. I mean, I drive home sometimes at 8 o'clock at night, and tonight as I go over and I kind of look north and south, and I just kind of shake my head, like, I feel sorry for everybody sitting down there. But it's, typically anytime after, I mean, they say to go south, if you don't leave by 8:30 in the morning, you're toast. And
You're
going
not wrong, Kathy.
going there at night, I mean, it's going to have to be after 8 p.m. to find any freedom either. So at some point, I think that as it was mentioned earlier, that lane that they opened was awesome for people, at least from Lorton, that could ride that shoulder down all the way to Prince William Parkway. Now that they've closed it, it's caused a temporary issue, and hopefully it'll be open again in several months. But that doesn't get us to where we need to go. I mean, somehow you need to do something to move people further south. And certainly the express lanes aren't helping to get
No.
further south. There's nobody on them.
And there's only one way. I mean, when I go out to 66, they have it both ways. I've always wondered why we don't have that and why other parts of the county are getting it.
Yeah, this is, I mean, Tom, I don't know if this is feedback that you're, I'm sure, constantly passing along as a supervisor Stork, but yeah, there's a massive bottleneck between Lorton Road and 123 right now, for
To be
sure.
honest, I'm not sure why 95 wound up with, reversible express lanes, whereas 66 and 495 wound up with, bi-directional. I assume it was potential impacts to adjacent properties. But also I have heard, we can try to get an update on this as well, because I thought I heard recently that there were, I don't know if it's a long-term desire, but that there was a desire to try to go bi-directional on 95. Don't quote me on that, but we can look into that as well and see if we can get you an update.
Thank you very much, because I really believe it's what's causing this original problem that we have right now, and without addressing that, we're hurting ourselves. And I can tell you too, I go to Richmond once a month, that the construction that's taking place, I mean, Fredericksburg is now DC Metro, and it is just expanding and expanding. So it's just going to increase the traffic load for us and ultimately our community.
So I know there's another discussion the DPD will be leading. I don't know if we want to do that and then come back for some decision making, or not decision making, but some try to solidify some direction. I don't know, Graham or Steve.
Tom, before you move on, I do have one question I failed to ask during the discussion. If the BRT is not coming past Fort Belvoir, has any consideration been given to widening Route 1 from Gunston Cove Road to the CSX overpass?
So BRT, I think what you're saying is BRT phases 1 and 2 have been chosen to move forward, and that's from Huntington to Fort Belvoir.
Correct.
Phase 3 is from Fort Belvoir to Woodbridge, and that's what we're kind of going to be tweaking. That phase of the BRT was not added to the comp plan back in 2018 with the other two phases. We're figuring that it'll be added here as long as the task force and the citizens are in agreement that it's a good idea. But separate from that, the comp plan does contemplate or recommend 6-laning of Richmond Highway from around Lorton. I think the 6-laning stops around Lorton Road, maybe a little bit south of Lorton Road, where it kind of drops down to 4 lanes. Our comp plan does recommend that it be 6 lanes all the way to the Occoquan. And believe it or not, our analysis assumed that. So even with 6 lanes all the way to the Occoquan, we were still showing some issues on Richmond Highway. But yeah, I think I think we do want BRT to Woodbridge through Lorton at some point in the future once the first two phases are constructed. And I do think that 6 Landing of Richmond Highway would probably occur as well at some point.
Okay, and that's fine, and I'm actually kind of confused because what is it? I forgot the name of the organization that help me out, Dale or Nick, the MVTA.
Yes.
The MVTA, the one of the studies that they put out showed that from believe it's from phase 3, what you're considering phase 3, our segment, which was phase 3, would be now in phase 27, and it would be from I believe it's got to be like from Belvoir to Woodbridge, and that's phase 27. And so it's a lot. Apparently, the ridership for BRT did not make sense. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
First, NBTA, Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, a lot of the transportation funding, or quite a bit of the transportation funding, flows through them. So they wanted to develop a BRT action plan for Northern Virginia. And I do believe you're right. I do believe that what I'm calling phase 3, and then a little bit more, I think it goes all the way down to, I'm not as familiar with geography down there, but the Triangle area.
Yes.
That's
You're
phase
correct.
28. It's only
Yeah.
28 phases.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and what used to be phase 3 is now phase 27.
You're right, Tom. You're right, Tom.
I wouldn't call those numbers phases. I would just call them numbers. I think they wanted to number them so that you could easily reference the routes. I wouldn't call it, I don't think it was meant to be a prioritization or a sequencing. So I wouldn't call it phase 27. I just think they numbered it 27. And yeah, I've been talking about Woodbridge VRE because I was involved with the study 10 plus years ago with the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, and it only went as far as Woodbridge VRE. But you are correct. There was a later study done by, it may have been DRPT again, that contemplating that route going all the way down to the Triangle.
Yeah.
So it would be even further reaching.
Yep.
And to your point about early estimates of ridership not being that great, that is true. Even DRPT's analysis showed that there wasn't a lot, but that was because they were using comp plan land uses from 10 years ago. We're in the process now of changing that. So if we increase the intensity, build some multifamily at Gunston Plaza, I think you build up the potential for ridership through what I was calling phase 3, but the segment beyond Fort Belvoir, let's just say.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Just one last thing. I think we would be remiss to not mention it again as far as transportation goes. As you go down the Route 1 corridor, all of those kind of communities that are at the southern side of Gunston Cove Road off of Route 1 could likely benefit by being able to access a northbound I-95 entrance further south. You can currently get on southbound, but not northbound. So as you're going towards the CSX bridge, you can get on 95 south there, but you cannot get on 95 north there.
And that's exactly why my questions about Fernaccia Road was leading toward. Nick, you're right on it. That it ends up being a no man's land. It a bottleneck in one direction, but and then you begin thinking, well, my God, where are we going to park cars? I mean, is everything going to stop right there? No, you're right on target with that. I'd continue that line of thinking.
Yeah, right on target, and you've probably been around for other discussions where that thought's been brought up and brought up and brought up. And we got feedback from either VDOT or FCDOT that they were not going to put a ramp that went north from Route 1 going south, because then traffic would have to go south before it went north. And that was the logic used in not including it in the plans going forward. I find that very short-sighted. And another benefit to that entrance, if you could take Route 1 where it crosses 95, goes under the railroad tracks right there, and send people north, it would take all the trucks out of central Lorton that wanted to go north on 95. They would go there anyway. So that is nothing in my mind but an absolute positive idea that helps absolutely everything.
But there's just a lot of industrial uses that are south of Gunston Road along the western side that are, heavy truck usage. You're making a right and another right.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's a win-win.
Instead of all the way up to Armistead and
Right.
left on Lorton and adding to the traffic and everything else. That's, again, nothing but a positive idea there, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to cross over currently to make a left, which is dangerous on its own. But given the fact that we're talking about, trying to do what we're trying to do down the Lorton Road corridor, offering this as an alternative, I think, is something that should be on the table every time. Dale. Dale dropped.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Mr. Burke, was there any analysis by the company that assisted you in looking at ridership, VRE, spaces needed, amount? I mean, because if we talk the Lewis Chapel cut through, that might be good to get people out of the VRE parking lot without having to go up to Lorton Station Boulevard or Pohick Road. I think that is one positive out of that. But are there studies or anything that demographs shows that the ridership for the VRE is only in the immediate Lorton area, or is this something that expands up Silverbrook, up past Cross Point and Barrington, Roseland up 123, or over toward Pohick Road, and even farther over toward Telegraph Road? I mean, where would these people be coming from to expand their access to the VRE? Do you have anything on that?
To be honest, no, we didn't have the budget to dive that deep in the BRT. We are assuming the BRT, and we are the ridership of the BRT is being taken off the top before the roadway operations are assessed. But we didn't really ask our consultant to really do like a functional analysis of the BRT. And
well, and that makes sense. Your answers makes absolute sense. You can only do so much with what they don't give you. But what I was looking at is that would that create, however, hey, let's take the Lorton VRE, and it's an easier parking area. But then again, if there's more stores and other things along there, Mr. Reiser's and my favorite store, that Forever 71, that we look forward to shopping at, I mean, if there's more things there, then I want to go there. I want to park there because I can stop at place X and shop, and then on my way home. So I was just trying to figure out where our draw was from for that area. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Tom. I think we were switching gears there. We had some more. You were calling on, was it?
Yeah. I was wondering if Graham and Steve wanted to do their part, and then we can come back to a general discussion of what direction we want to go. But whatever Graham and Steve want.
I'm happy to start real quick, but just to kind of tee up Steve. First of all, good to see y'all again. I know it's been a little while, but we've been working with Tom's team to look at the numbers. I think both Mr. Sargent and then Dale also brought up the numbers. And so that's one thing that we wanted to talk with y'all about. And I think the feedback that y'all have given us gives us a sense of direction in terms of what we may or may not want to do with this kind of final round of review that we're doing right now. But we wanted to go over the numbers that we've been looking at as a part of this planning study, and also kind of give you a sense of where we left things in terms of the locations for some of the activity nodes. I think, Dale, you mentioned, for example, the Gunston Plaza kind of core, and maybe potentially looking at kind of areas a little bit to the west of that across Armistead, for example. And so Steve's got some numbers as well as some maps to kind of describe what we're after and where we think we're heading with this. But we wanted to confirm the direction with y'all because it's all obviously tied in with the capacity of the transportation system, which Tom has just kind of gone over for you. So I'll just tee it up that we wanted to have this discussion with y'all because we think that this is critical. And at this point, with Tom's analysis that he's done, we have a sense of where we need to go with the mitigations. But there is an open question, which Tom was getting at earlier, which is one mitigation typically in these kinds of situations where there's a lot of congestion is to reduce total land use in the plan. And so we think we've heard kind of some reaction to that idea here, but we wanted to walk y'all through what we have in the numbers today, what we're planning for, and then what y'all think in terms of overall direction for the study, because we're at a place now where we think we have a good sense of what we wanted to do with this, and we just want to make sure that we're on the same page with the task force. So Steve, I don't know if that sums up what you're hoping to cover, but go ahead and feel free to take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. So last year when we presented the task force with a land use scenario that was based on recommendations that we received from Renaissance Planning, and there's a lot of information about how much of the different types of non-residential uses that you're looking for in a mixed use scenario versus how much residential goes into that use mix to kind of make the vision to support the vision. So when we presented you with the consultant scenario back in last July, at the end of last July, the task force asked us to explore some ways that we could boost the development potential and account for some of the existing development that currently falls short of the planned and zoned potential in some cases. So we did that in September, and you see that the number here is where we kind of pushed up to with this idea of going with this bold idea of looking at every nook and cranny of the study area and core area to see how much we can, what happens if we maximize development. So we had this number of 4,305 new residential units and 4,886,634 gross square feet of new non-residential uses. Of course, like when Tom saw these numbers, I think he probably fell on the floor, but I'm just joking. So in December, we did a minor cut to the residential uses, and then also did a kind of large scale cut to the. I mean, we did a minor cut to the residential uses and a large scale cut to the non-residential uses, and there's a good explanation for why the non-residential uses were cut down so much. The way that the comprehensive plan is currently written and I'll go through this in map form soon, but for the largest area where industrial uses are currently recommended, the comprehensive plan has a recommendation for 0.35 FAR, but the zoning ordinance actually allows it to go up to 1.0 FAR, which is what we've been considering in those industrial areas with this plan amendment. So what we were able to find out when Tom and his team and his consultant team ran the baseline for the transportation is that we were counting with the baseline that they had, the numbers they have from MCOG, WMCOG. What we were doing is we were double layering industrial intensity. So we were kind of doubling up on the industrial intensity that could be realized in all those areas, not knowing that the baseline was already accounting for zoning. So that was why in December, we were able to drop those industrial numbers down to 1.7 million. And again, that was with a minor cut on the residential. So when FCDOT started looking at the information last winter, they were starting to see, again, they were starting to see how even this high level, there was still a high level of increase in industrial uses and in non-residential uses overall. So in January, along with the residential uses. So in January, what we started doing is looking at some of those areas that the task force, when we talked to the task force last year, where you all said that you didn't really, there was some discussion in the task force of not really seeing Lorton Marketplace as being a place that would have residential uses on the same magnitude as Gunston Plaza, and it makes sense because Lorton Marketplace would not be located with convenience to the BRT line. So we backed down the numbers at Lorton Marketplace. We've also backed down some of the numbers at the Lorton VRE station, and then but we kept the intensity and density at Lorton Marketplace. I mean at Gunston Plaza. What you're seeing here with these residential numbers is also recognizing that we've taken out some of the areas that already have some potential. What you see here in red, some areas that we were planning to go higher and higher with already has some potential for higher residential densities without a plan amendment. So that's been on the books for a while, and it hasn't been enacted. So we didn't really want to touch those as far as adding more residential density if it has a potential to either break the transportation system, or else break the transportation network, or else if it sparked a need for us to look elsewhere and drop the intensity down, like drop the density down like at Gunston Plaza. So we took those out, and again, you'll see this in map form. And then with the numbers that we're working on now, we're also doing something that I think the task force has shown interest in from the beginning. You see the numbers at the top. We found a few more residential units, a few more places where we could plan for higher residential densities, while also greatly reducing the non-residential, because instead of looking at a layering of industrial areas now, saying intensify the industrial uses in these areas, we're looking at the mix of industrial uses in a more innovative way. And I think this is what you all wanted, to look at the types of uses that aren't really industrial, the types of industrial like you see on Richmond Highway now in Lorton, but things that go hand in hand with office uses, things that go hand in hand with institutional uses and educational uses and things of that nature. That type of innovative industrial. So really to look at industrial across the board and say that industrial should be allowed to match the zoning potential of 1.0 FAR. We're taking that back down and saying, and it should be a targeted mix of uses that align with the vision that goes up to that 1.0, if that makes sense. So it's no longer really layering industrial on top of industrial and then putting office and a mix of other uses on top of the industrial. It's converting that industrial potential into those other uses like office. So it's kind of harvesting what you could do from an industrial standpoint and giving it to office uses and those institutional uses, public facilities, and things of those natures that really provide a service to the community.
Hey, Stephen, I apologize. I am really struggling very hard to follow much of what you're saying and where you're going. It's kind of all over the place with various pieces. So
That's why this is just a snapshot to show the work that we've done over time.
But it looks, but if in general, what I think I'm hearing you tell me is that what you guys did when we weren't meeting is change the plans dramatically and lowered them and seem to have lowered them pretty and made lots of decisions without any input from us. And I find that a bit surprising and a bit disappointing that if these were going to be ones that you thought were necessary, why we didn't convene a meeting to discuss them, because I mean,
Well,
I'm struggling to some of it, so I don't know for sure because hard to tell.
Well, we're bringing this information to you, first of all, to show that really, when you look at the numbers, it's really a transition of what is industrial. You all, I think you all wanted to see some of the industrial areas change, but it's also showing you that the numbers that we had kicked it up to, when you asked us to increase the numbers at that time, you told us that when we increased the numbers, that there was an understanding that we were increasing it because there's likely to be some cutback. And you all also said at that meeting that we didn't need to bring it back to you before we got into the transportation study.
I don't think that's quite accurate. I think what we indicated to you was that we recognize, regardless of what intensity development we suggest in here, what's going to actually come to pass and what the upper potentials are, or what they ultimately will come out with, are going to be substantially lower than the potentials. We already indicated there were substantial potentials that exist in the comprehensive plan as it stands, and that potential is not being realized. And so we recognize, and have always recognized, that we're going to need to raise it pretty substantially just to be able to get a number. If it's going to be 60% of that, it might be the reality. If you put the potential by 4,000, the likely scenarios, you won't get anywhere as close to 4,000. It'll probably be only 2 or 3. But if you put it 2 or 3, we're certainly not going to end up with the 2 or 3. Now we're going to end up with maybe 1,000. And again, in my mind, there is no point in putting in a half-assed, half-baked, solution set in there that won't survive and won't support the businesses that we want there in the first place. So if you're not going to be able to put the density in there to be able to support them, then I'd rather not have any of the density.
Well,
I mean, what's the point?
Tim, real quick, let me just jump in real quick to make sure that it's clear what we're doing here. Steve does have a map that he's going to walk through in just a second that explains what changed. So if you're looking right now at the 4305 that was presented in September of last year, comparing that to the 2689 that's kind of outlined as the new number that we're considering, we will walk through block by block what's changed there. And I'm very hopeful that at the end of that, you'll understand kind of what the difference is, and that it's not really that impactful. And I know that there are different numbers. There's about 1,700 units in the difference. Well, we'll show you kind of where those units came out and also why. So I promise you by the end, you'll have a sense that we really didn't change anything. There is an accounting issue that we need to kind of explain further, which relates to the affordable housing preservation policy. But I don't think it's a bad thing. And so we've got a map. We'll show you everything that we adjusted.
Again, I apologize. It's hard to, I'm struggling a bit following it, and I get the lead up to it and whatnot. But if you looked at our June 2024 meeting and we had 2820, what happened after that was we sat and met and said, hey, you had the whole team, and they all looked at it and said, we need it to be greater than that because it's not going to make to that 2820. So now bringing it in and saying, oh, it's now we got it to 26. It would appear to be a substantial walk back.
And totally understand. And we'll walk you through the map and kind of show you where those are located. The non-residential thing, that's really just the 1.0 that Steve was describing, that's in the adopted plan for those industrial areas. We didn't have to account for in the proposed plan scenario. So this is just looking at grand total net change. So that's more of an accounting thing than an actual change in terms of the scenario that we developed.
I guess let me just kind of get a better, the non-residential, non-residential square footage is showing at the 24 meetings that we had 4.8 million.
Yep.
And that was
And-
mostly industrial. That
In the
was
industrial areas
that was
mostly.
double counting.
Mhm.
That was layering new industrial potential on top of a baseline that was already going beyond what the comprehensive plan says and into what the zoning ordinance says. We don't have to do that now. So
you didn't really change anything. You're just reporting the numbers differently.
Correct.
reported the numbers differently, corrected, showing you where the numbers were corrected.
Right, but the number now is what? I see the January 25 and I see a September. One says 52,856. And the other says a million, so and versus 4 million. So I'm a little lost.
So, and I'm going to show you that in the maps. But what we did with that is we took the eastern side of we were looking at an increase on the eastern side of Richmond Highway in those industrial areas also, but those areas are not in the sanitary sewer area, and there's not a lot of depth there.
Nor were they in our study area. I didn't believe.
It was in the study area. It's in the study area.
On the east side.
The east side, yes. I'll get into the maps. I'll show you on the maps.
All right. My apologies.
I get the maps are going to explain where the reductions were made. I guess I'm concerned where we're involving the potential to convert anything industrial to commercial or residential down the line, and how we're, maybe these needs to be segregated out a little bit better. That when I hear the word industrial, it's like nothing that we're talking about has really been industrial, and any inclusion of it, I think we ought to be careful in how we're explaining that and how it affects any of the numbers when it's really commercial residential. That is what we're trying to kind of get at. But I guess go ahead and go through the maps and let's see where we end up there.
So let's see. So this is the first map that I wanted to show you all, and it goes over where there's already a plan for potential for new growth potential in residential areas. And you'll see here subunits E6, E9, and a portion of E12 all have room to grow according to the adopted plan. E6 is the area, the Wildwood and Gilmore subdivision. The portion of E12 that we're talking about is the Woods of Fairfax apartments, and then E9 is Hagel Circle. And the adopted plan already has the mechanism to gain 220 new units in the Wildwood and Gilmore subdivision, and then 55 dwelling units in Hagel Circle. Now, the caveat with Hagel Circle is that most of the units there are considered to be market rate affordable units. So if there was a plan under the preservation of affordable housing policy, that 55 isn't a true cap. That 55 is just the cap that's written into the plan option. Now, if everyone who owned units there wanted to come together and consolidate and redevelop that site at Hagel Circle. And then at E12, the Woods of Fairfax, that's also being shown as to be determined, because there's no cap on the comprehensive plan doesn't put a cap on how much additional density that can be realized at a site if you are going in with an agreement to preserve the current level of affordability at that site. So we didn't feel like, because these sites already have existing plan options for increased development, and also because there's an affordable housing preservation policy in place, we don't feel that there's a need to other than calling out new ideas that would be focused on improving access and doing things that are in line with the vision. If you were to redevelop these properties, there's no need to really increase those properties at the level that we'd originally explored after you all wanted us to find more density and intensity in several of these places.
So Just on the Hagel Circle, I'm just going to throw out a question. You know, I understand that it is currently affordable, but broadly throughout the county, there are properties in general that are not affordable because we don't have enough density. And then if you're looking to increase the density on a current development, because there aren't any free land units really as much left, you would be looking at older developments, which are normally in fact affordable. So why wouldn't you consider taking a older community that yes might be affordable and increasing the density to try to more broadly make them affordable?
The preservation policy does not mean that you preserve the structures. If say there are 100 units there that count as affordable at a certain range, you just say you're going to add density on top of what's there. You can add density on top of what's there so long as you preserve that level of affordability. So the preservation isn't about preserving the site as it's developed. It's about preserving an established level of affordability there while also adding, you can add other types of housing that don't have to be affordable, but you preserve that level of affordability and you get bonus density for that. So
I guess what I'm trying to say is why not, instead of preserve, create a level of affordability by increasing the number of units that are available?
Nick, that's exactly what it does. So frankly, calling it a preservation policy makes people think that the structure, like historic preservation, like the structure has to remain. The preservation policy, and I just dropped a link into the chat so everybody can read it in their spare time. What it does is it sets out a goal of no net loss of affordable housing, market affordable housing. So both Hagel Circle and then E12, both of those have been identified as containing units that are meeting the county's target AMIs or income levels, and therefore the rents that are associated with market affordable housing. So it's not committed affordable like ADUs or WDUs or anything like that. What the preservation policy says is if there is a redevelopment of a preservation site, it can be allowed. So this is the important thing. So it doesn't say that the structures have to remain for forevermore. Far from it. It actually says that with redevelopment, we will give you additional densities on your site above what the adopted comprehensive plan provides, even on a site-by-site basis, if you're able to preserve the units on a one-for-one basis as a goal. So if I'm making up numbers here, but say there's 100 units that are out there today, and you can get close to preserving 100 of those market affordable units with the redevelopment, we'll give you the additional density bonus that's necessary to accomplish that one-for-one housing replacement. So that's a huge incentive for preserving the units in a redevelopment scenario, because we're saying we'll give you as much density basically as it takes in order to meet that goal. And you still have to address your impacts and that sort of thing, but it's not really a preservation of structures policy. It's more about preserving the affordability that's there on sites today in a redevelopment scenario. So that's why we've described both E9 and then E12 as being sites where we can't really, there's no need to assign redevelopment potential of a certain density level now, because we don't know what the replacement density will be in the future should those sites come into redevelop. So that's a key piece, because there's kind of no point right now in assigning increased densities to it, when in the future a developer could come forward and just override those site-specific density recommendations in a redevelopment scenario. So it's kind of weird because we call it preservation. What we're really after is the preservation of the affordability of the units, not so much the structure.
And I'm sure that's not the only place throughout the county that this exists. How successful is that policy of developers taking advantage of that?
It's brand new. We've had it for just frankly, just a couple of years at this point. And you're right, there's affordable, market affordable properties all throughout the county. Steve's working on one right now in the Providence district where they're looking at adding additional density. So it's kind of a new thing, but it's happening, or we're sending projects through that process. It's basically as a way of avoiding having to go through a comp plan exercise, because we recognize that time is money. People don't want to have to go through a comp plan exercise if they don't have to. And as long as they're meeting some of the county's kind of higher level affordability goals, we want to make sure that we're able to incentivize that through our process. So that 2,600, and I think this is the key piece that to Tim's question earlier about why did the numbers go down? One of the big numbers that we had previously in that 4,300 scenario that y'all saw last September was E12. And so we had assigned density there. But then after looking at it and talking with our Department of Housing and Community Development, that's when we discovered that there's market affordable housing there. We don't need to assign density there because it could come in anyway and not need a comp plan change.
Mr. Sargent.
And as they correct me if I'm wrong, Graham, but as they add new units, they would also have to have a certain in those new units that aren't part of what's being put back into the preservation pool. They would also have to have a certain, going over a certain density, they would have to have a certain percentage that are workforce or affordable housing. So it also has a potential to create more affordable housing. To answer your question, Nick.
Exactly. Yeah.
Question for Graham: Does this formula anticipate ownership or just rental? I can't remember.
Rental.
Just rental. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Carry on.
So that's again right there with those numbers. Just what you see on the face value of what's in the comprehensive plan. We're adding what's already there has the potential to add 276 additional units on top of that 2,689 number that we were looking at before. So this actually puts us past, if you just considered E6 and E9, that puts us past that's already taken us above the Renaissance recommendation for meeting the vision anyway, if that makes sense.
I think I follow and understand.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's a better way on that previous chart to map those out, to segregate them out a bit.
Basically what shows on the map adds 276 more units to that 2,689.
Yeah.
So
I get that. I guess adding the units on the map to the 2,689 from all of the maps, what number is that?
Okay. I can, and we can do that. I can do that as a follow-up
Yeah. Just want to make sure going forward
for you.
As we've been having these gaps, some things that were head scratchers before are head scratchers again because we forgot the explanation behind it.
Right. So next, with this focus on the potential for repositioning industrial sites in units F and F1 on that western side only, and you can see the eastern side is also in our. I think Tim had that question. The eastern side of Richmond Highway is also within the study area, but again, we took this out because it's outside of the approved area for sanitary sewer service right now. Whereas all of F and F1 are inside the sanitary sewer service area. And considering land unit F, there's already an option for redevelopment in what would be kind of like an office park type of setting with office and industrial uses, but it's still at a very low intensity. So the plan here is to again without layering, without what we did before, and which was kind of doubling the amount of industrial use that could be allowed to and layering that on top of what the comprehensive plan currently allows and what the zoning ordinance currently allows. When FCDOT got into their analysis and found that the baseline already included the zoning potential, we're basically taking it above the zoning potential by 56,000 square feet now to get up to that 1.0 FAR. But it's no longer saying that everything that happens here would have to be industrial. You're mixing your office uses. There's a potential for public facilities, institutional uses like training. And the idea here is what we've talked about in the past. This idea for having an innovative kind of mixed use type of center that the Economic Development Authority has shown some interest in. So within this area also, there is we're picking up some of the potential for up to 400 residential units within this area on the north side as a transition from the adjacent residential uses to the north of this black line here. So you can have multifamily or townhomes in this area potentially, and also some mixed use retail to go along with those uses within this area. So that's another place where we're picking up some of the residential and maintaining some of the residential.
Hey, I'm sorry I missed it. That black shaded area surrounding the study area, what does it represent again?
That's the area that'll be recommended for designation of a suburban center core for Lorton.
Okay, but the one right outside it, what is it designated? The black one, not the gray one. Yes.
That's the entire Lorton South Route 1 suburban center.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
So next, we see this whole idea for what the comprehensive plan does. It's what you all have been doing since we first started. It's identifying and defining the roles of the different sites that will serve as primary activity nodes. At one time, we were defining them in another way, but since Renaissance came along, we've been using the term activity nodes, and all those activity nodes are the true four focal points of the suburban center. So at the north end, in red, you have the VRE parking lot, which is being considered for a potential to have residential uses on the county property, the county-owned VRE parking lots, in addition to probably having new structured parking. And then to the west on Lorton Road, you have Lorton Marketplace. And then to the east on Lorton Road, you have Gunston Plaza. And then below that on Richmond Highway is the community center and library. And the idea is to, even though the areas in gray, a lot of the areas in gray that surround these sites, even though they may not change from the planning, from the comprehensive plan standpoint, the idea is to have better access from those neighborhoods and into these activity nodes. And then in the lighter red or the dark pinkish color, these are some of the supporting sites. These are supporting sites that we're still looking at changing the comprehensive plan for, because unlike some of these other areas that are currently have older residential uses, none of these areas in the dark pink have currently have plan options that would allow them to go to a higher density or intensity. So that's what the
But wouldn't one of the main goals is trying to somehow or another connect those three activity centers, make them a little bit more connected?
Yep. And that's part of the work that Tom is doing. That was one of the things he was talking about earlier when he talked about looking at alternative routes, changes to some of the streetscape and profiles for some of these for some of these major roads. So that's all part of the plan. Right now, we're just talking about where we're looking at to make these changes.
Any way to connect that VRE parking lot or and that node somehow make that connect to Gunston Plaza Shopping Center and Lorton Road, because there's a big gap between there.
I think that's something that's being considered for Lorton Station Marketplace, Tom, correct, with active and active transportation facilities.
From the VRE station to where?
From the VRE down to Gunston Plaza.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be recommending streetscape type improvements, bicycle, shared use paths, things like that.
Things that make walking and biking more comfortable and convenient. And it's not, and also they're also looking at that for those grade areas too. But again, Tom's team is on top of that And right now I'm just covering the areas that we are still looking at making these lands, looking at the areas where land use recommendations will change, and also areas where intensity and density may not change, but recommendations for improved connectivity and everything else that supports the activity nodes would change in the comprehensive plan or be updated in the comprehensive plan.
Dale?
Yeah. Let me make sure I have it on. Yeah, wouldn't we first have to agree on a design for the parking area reuse in order for us to understand what density would be there and then what is left for parking for VRE in order for Mr. Burke to be able to design what roads would need improvement in order to, I mean, because when you look at it, it's probably the third largest of the parcels available, but you know, impacting the density, how much of, I mean, what would go in there and how would that affect what remaining parking would be left that would then affect what remaining transportation would be needed? I guess that's what I'm asking the question. Stephen, I guess that would go to you.
Well, the way that we're viewing it is if there was a plan for residential uses, if there is a plan for residential uses on that county site, the county usually works with nonprofit and public sector partners to do it. It would most likely, because the county right now is in the state of evaluating all their properties that may be available to produce additional affordable housing. It would probably be an affordable housing project, first of all, but in doing that, the county would also need to identify the number of parking spaces that VRE needs to continue working. And if you build residential uses on there, you're probably gonna have to also build parking structures. So the parking would go up. So none of that has really been none of that is really part of what we're doing now. We're not really we don't look at a detail of what type of design is appropriate there. We're trying to identify how many residential units, I guess the maximum of the number of residential units that we'd recommend to go there, and just recommending the idea that this could potentially be a site that could be used for residential uses if you can overcome a lot of different things. One of them would be solving the parking issue, but then another one is making sure that anyone who lives there isn't adversely impacted by noises from the railroad and things of that nature. But right now, it's really identifying this area as an area that could be good for residential use because of its proximity to VRE, but also because it could support some of that mix of uses, additional residential uses, because it could support the existing mixed use center that's there at the VRE station. So next, with the plan text, another thing that we're doing is that we're going to try to do is emphasize the importance of having parks and other public facilities that will be adequate to support the plan growth. And we're with that, we'd have to evaluate the potential for improved pedestrian and biking facilities in the open space surrounding Pohick Creek. We know that that's been something that the task force has wanted for a while. Can we improve the trail that already goes through the creek, not on the side that you were talking about earlier, Dale, where where there's a rare species habitat, but DPW, the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services, has already identified the potential for having some level of improvement to the existing trail that's through there that some people may say is really non-existent when it comes to crossing the creek and everything. So that's something that needs to be considered. And part of what we were talking about earlier with bringing people closer to these nodes and bringing these nodes closer together through access. And then, of course, that second bullet point, it just talks about the need to identify with redevelopment. We need to identify potential sites for new parks and plazas and recreational facilities that would be publicly accessible. So, and a big part of that could also, a big part of finding those areas could also be in some of if some of those industrial areas that we spoke about earlier were to be repositioned for mixed uses. So so the last slide I was going to show when it comes to what we're considering when as we've been looking at the land use mix is encouraging development intensities that can support future extension of the one bus rapid transit services south to Lorton. And that's why we still haven't touched Gunston Plaza. Gunston Plaza was the place that we knew that we needed a high concentration of the residential density to make things like this happen, to make the one come south, and also capitalizing on the presence of VRE and the Amtrak auto train in the core area by encouraging development that can make Lorton more attractive for visitors and tourists to stay longer in the area. Because you know, it, we've heard the task force talk a lot of times like what can people do when they're in line going to the auto train station? What's going to keep people around when before they get on the VRE or when they get off the VRE and before they drive home and things of that nature. So with all these changes that we made, we've still held these things that you all have prioritized at the level of priority that they need to be held. So then there's a question. I probably should have shown this earlier because there was a question about what the grade areas were. But here again is the outline for the Lorton South Route 1 Suburban Center. And in the comprehensive plan, suburban centers are generally defined as employment centers that are evolving to include mixed use cores. And right now, Lorton is one of the two remaining suburban centers that are planned without cores in the county. And the other one is Centerville. And there's currently a Centerville study that's going on also to kind of identify a core area in Centerville. When we last were together last year, there were three, and that third one was Flint Hill, and that has now had a core area that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in the past several months. So just wanted to kind of talk through those things so you can know that everything that you're working on here, everything that we've been working on here can become a reality, and it makes sense to do this. So and designating a core area can be used to advance the adopted plan's goals for having a town center in Lorton. Right now, the adopted plan, I think you all have agreed that the adopted plan stops short by identifying the VRE station, the area around the VRE station as the Lorton Town Center because of its size and also because it's not on that main road. But when you identify this core area, the core areas would try to bring in all three of the largest largest commercial centers within this area together within that core, and also bring the library and community center into that core. So again, the whole goal is to bring those things closer together with defining features and also with transportation improvements.
Len, what do you have a question?
So lastly, this is just all those things that this is just a map that shows all those things that we talked about and how they would come together, how they look together now as land masses, but this idea that if all these things are brought together through this plan that we're going to be working on and with the straw man plan text that we're going to bring to you this fall, with how we can bring these things together and then put the community vision as the guide for how they really work in the future, how they work together in the future. So, and lastly, this is the timeline of remaining milestones that we have. Again, in November, right now the plan is to come back with a straw man plan text for you all to start considering, and that's just a very preliminary look at the plan text where you all can take it and red line, make any red line suggestions, or anything that you see that needs to be strengthened, or if there are things you have questions about, we'll be sending that text out to you before that meeting in November. And then when we come together, there'll be discussion and probably some votes on some of the ideas that you have, that the task force may have, on which direction you all want to go. So that's what we'll be doing into the fall. Then in January, there'll be some community outreach. There'll be another task force meeting where we come to you and show you what we have done with that straw man plan text to kind of address your concerns and you know, let you know that we've heard you. And then once you all have had a chance to look at that, that's when we'll want to take that information back out to the community for one last run. And then after that, if if everything is ticking along in a good way, and you all feel like things are moving in a good way, in February of next year, we'd be looking to publish the staff report that sums up everything that you all have done with us, everything that we've done to kind of put this vision out, and the recommendation of staff and the recommendation of the task force going forward to the planning commission. And then the planning commission, at their public hearing, they'll probably have some more feedback from the public, and they may tell us of some other things that may need to be changed, any minor changes and things of that nature. And then after that, at that public hearing that we'd hope to have in March 2026, we would be going to the Board of Supervisors in April of 2026. So.
Linwood, go ahead.
I know it's been a while since we've all met, but I just want to say to staff, bravo with what you've been working on. Putting the transportation element in it so we understand how things are going to be affected, some of the mitigation that's possible to do that, and the way that you've gone into the weeds with the land uses and said, this really provides a lot of density already. We should focus on the things that need to be changed. It helps us really concentrate, but the level of detail that's being studied right now really makes me feel good, and I really think we're on the right track. And you guys, again, for the months we haven't been meeting, have really studied a lot and put things together well. I think we're on the right track. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linwood.
Mr. Sargent?
Thanks, sir. I'm going to agree with our last comment. I think it's one thing to start with a blank slate, and have the ability to have that flexibility and creativity, but mixing all of this in within the confines of an already developed and complex area is no easy feat, and it's pretty impressive where you're ending up. I had one question, because I think it'll come up when it gets to the Planning Commission, if not sooner. That's going to be the concept of placemaking. We've all heard it a lot at the Planning Commission and supervisor level. Do you see opportunities to emphasize placemaking within this?
Definitely.
Okay, good. I think that'll be helpful, because that's going to weave a lot of these different parcels together.
And that was one of the good things, I think, too, about finding that double layering of industrial density, because now we're able to say, hey, it's not, we're not thinking about 4 million square feet of additional industrial uses. We're thinking about 4 million square feet of mixed uses that should also include things like parks. Also, it should include public plazas, places where people can hang out. Potentially places where people can also go and eat, but not on a level that competes with what we're trying to do in the core area. But when you have that large of an area, that many acres, it would be a shame for that to just be blown up. You don't blow it up for the sake of blowing it up. You don't create intensity for the sake of intensity because you think it's going to bring, you think something could happen. we now have ability to say, hey, you know, it blows up a little bit, but you know, several hundred thousands of industrial uses have to be transitioned from what it
Yeah.
looks like today to something that looks a lot better for you to even think about going to that higher level of intensity. So
Agree.
there's a lot more focus with it.
Do you think at this point you'd have you know, early next year you'd have some school capacity issues, you know, estimates?
We should have those in the fall.
Okay, good.
We're gonna send these new numbers, and actually with the ways that we're kind of backing down to respect some of the plan potential that's already out there and some of the changes that can already take place in some of these sites, the impacts to schools is probably going to be less than what it was the last time they looked at it last summer. So
Okay, yeah. That'll be good to have those kind of numbers, just so I think that's helpful for the surrounding communities too.
I do also want to agree in general that listen, this plan and this project and what we were looking to do in Lorton had lots of challenges and lots of things that would say we weren't going to be able to do the things we want. So it was always going to be a big undertaking, and I do recognize and appreciate Stephen, you, and Graham and Tom Burke and all of you in here, that this was a big undertaking and nothing simple and easy. You already had so many outlying conditions and so many challenges to deal with it. So we always knew it was a challenge. That said, I think we've made good progress. I'd like to get a little more into the details of exactly what we're really proposing here and what will actually look like. But at the end of the day, this was no simple feat, and I appreciate the effort and the work and all the extra time you guys put into it.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And what we can do, we can provide kind of a breakdown of the sites where we took haircuts and kind of where and why, basically. And we can give that to y'all well in advance of this November task force meeting, just so y'all have that for just tracking and can see what we did a little bit more specifically. Because we hear you. I think seeing the big picture numbers is without too much context, obviously, it's kind of tough to see. So, but we can provide that for you in advance of November.
That would be helpful. I just think in general, we probably need a few other kinds of things, and we can send you some questions on them. I like to get a better understanding of that of the industrial space conversion, because my sense from the county is that they don't want a lot of that converted. So that too is a concern.
Yeah, I think if there's a potential for employment generation out of this through something, there's already that site is already planned to be an office park, but I think it goes from 0.35
Yeah,
FAR of traditional
yeah,
industrial up to 0.5 as an office park
but
type
it's never
thing.
going to be an office park. We know that.
Yeah, but so when we talk about the industrial in order to get to that 1.0 FAR, it has to be innovative industrial. It has to be something in line with what EDA is looking for. And we're also going to go back to EDA as we draft the plan text, because they were the ones who were interested in this site. They said that they often turn people away to neighboring counties because they don't have sites of this size to bring in things like wet labs and dry labs and you know, a lot of the research
Right.
and you know, stuff that also gets federal grants and federal contracts. So we don't have that kind of space throughout the county, you know, or this amount of space that's available to those types of uses. So
Got it. Understood.
So
Thank you.
Stephen, EDA, is this the economic development?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes. So I just need a clarification on the acronyms that you're using, but
I'm
I
sorry.
agree with the sentiments that were presented earlier. You all did a tremendous amount of work. I definitely appreciate it and look forward to the November meeting. Definitely. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Dale?
Given the specificity of some of this, Stephen, can you kind of look in your crystal ball and give us an idea a couple of days in advance of getting this information for the November meeting so we can digest it better? I get nervous when I hear Tim Reiser say he doesn't understand something. So I want to really be able to read it and understand it better and make sure that my questions are better formulated. I just read ahead 72 hours or whenever we set that meeting date time, if we could ask for that.
Yeah, what we'll give you the next time it'll actually be written text it'll be the first shot at written text that could be used to update the comprehensive plan. So you'll have something to read, chew on, red line if you want to, you know, it'll actually be something in writing that you all are going to be discussing and, you know, in deciding yay or nay on certain things, and also, you know, trying to build consensus on where the actual comprehensive plan, what that actual comprehensive plan says.
Written text matched with the proposed map, putting proposed stamped on everything, so the visual learner can understand what the words are meaning. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do you need from us?
Could we go back to the transportation just for a little bit, because wanted to walk away from this meeting with a little bit of guidance in terms of how to try to wrap up the transportation analysis. And I think one of the questions I have is, and I think I've heard a little bit of both directions, but I think sentiment is that we might be willing to accept some congestion in Lorton if we're creating other, you know, new destinations that create shorter trips. So you're not in that traffic for such a long haul because you're going to shorter, you're going locally. Is that generally the sentiment, or am I misreading?
I would say yes for myself.
And then tied to that is, do we want Lorton Road to stay as 6 lanes, or do we think it might be a good idea to reduce it to 4 lanes in order to make it safer and more easy to cross, with the understanding that that's probably that's the catch-22.
So okay.
4.
We got Linwood saying 6. I don't know if we're doing the fingers or you just want to unmute and.
Well, Linwood wants to drive. He wants to join that line of traffic going from down to Prince William County through Lorton. So he wants 6 lanes.
No, I don't want there to be a line. I want the traffic to move. So that's what I want. But anyway, my input on that stuff, more is better with transportation. The more connections that you make, the less gridlocked they all are. So my opinion is more is better as far as transportation goes. As far as our end result, we're looking for, I should say I'm looking for, I don't want to speak for anybody else, the sweet spot. I want the rooftops to get the nice businesses that we craved in the beginning, and we started this exercise based on. But I don't want density just for density's sake, and I do want to try to accommodate any density we put in as well as possible with transportation. So we want a nice place to live. That's not miserable to move around in and not miserable to get to. It's only to our advantage when people can get in and out of the community, to get to the things, when we can get from one side of the community to the other. Sweet spot. That's what we're looking for. Sweet spot on everything. Good planning, sweet spot.
Thank you. Let me just go around the room here because I want to make sure we're giving Tom a clear answer here. So I will just go next. I think that yes, the community is willing to accept more density in lieu of having to travel outside of or more traffic and congestion in lieu of having to travel outside. I think Lorton Road, preferably along that corridor, is 4 lanes and not 6 lanes. And that's my take. Dale? Unmute, please, sir.
Schizophrenic, because I'm not sure bike lanes and pedestrian on Lorton Road are workable because of the flow of traffic coming through as not only the cut through, but when 95 backs up, as it will continue to do. I don't care what they do at 123. It's still going to back up, and the number of people cutting across on Waze and geomaps and everything else. So I'm not convinced that we have a solid plan for Lorton Road in order for pedestrians to cross over from Lorton Marketplace to the VRE or walking along and going to Gunston Plaza. I guess I need to have a better understanding of how that would work and what that would look like, Tom.
We'll definitely come back later with a better picture of the bike ped, but I could probably assure you that the treatments on Lorton Road, a streetscape, would include like a shared use path with a buffer separate from the roadway so that cyclists and pedestrians can move about, not in traffic but separate from traffic.
That would be very helpful for someone like me looking at that, because right now I would tend to think 6 lanes and widen the current paths that we already have and let people stay there. But if you say the streetscape, I would need to see what some of that looks like in order to be able to answer you better and assist you better within that.
Okay. Mr. Sergeant?
I think one thing it's too particular and too detailed for this level, but I think people will appreciate understanding what you can do, and that's sound mitigation, especially with the residential units, in terms of what you can, what kind of materials, what kind of glass windows and stuff that you can use to mitigate sound from what will obviously be additional traffic, additional noise, and a lot more people. So be prepared for that kind of response. And it's too early for that kind of level of detail, but let people know that you've got those tools to mitigate sound issues.
So let me just reiterate the 2 questions that Tom had, just we're making sure we're answering him. The first one was the statement, whether you agree or disagree, is the community willing to accept more congestion along the Lorton Road corridor in lieu of going outside of our area? And the second one was Lorton Road 4 or 6 lanes.
I think you can make the case for more traffic, people in that area. I think I'm going to wait to hear how the transportation analysis goes to see what's going to work best, whether it's 4 or 6 lanes. I don't want to state an opinion or preference because I don't have that expertise. I'd appreciate you guys giving us some internal review and sense of what's going to work best for us for the next meeting for consideration.
I will jump over to Christine, and feel free to chime in as a resident. Take off that other hat.
Yeah. Yes, for the density. I agree with Tim on the lanes. I drive Lorton Road twice a day towards Richmond Highway in the morning. It's not as bad in the morning, except it does get backed up, and there's always a potential for a fender bender coming down Silverbrook, turning on Lorton Road. I'd say it happens at least a few times a month.
Mm-hmm.
On the way home, I don't know why, but increasingly over the last 2 years, traffic has gotten so much worse on the way home and backs up incredibly in the far right for people to go south on Richmond Highway.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but every year it's gotten worse. So intuitively, I would say, yeah, sure, make it 6 lanes, but I agree with Tim. We need more information on that.
Okay.
I needed for them to drive this.
Wendy?
Right. So I actually attended a FC dot road transportation plan study that they did a meeting on. It was the active transportation and trails plan community meeting. And one of the things that they showed was the bike lanes and the bike pedestrian lanes and how they would be separated from the actual road, which was a concern of mine. So they had one picture where it was one-way street, on street, one-way cycle track, and then off-street, two-way cycle track, whereas bikes and pedestrians can go, in different directions on the same, separated by the yellow line. So with that said, as long as you all are taking that into consideration concerning Lorton Road, it would make sense to make it a 4-lane using having that 6-lane, the extra lane on each side of the road as that segregated bicycle pedestrian path. And I guess you would have to see the maps that they had. It's FCDOT presentation. I believe I attended this meeting earlier this month. So it's part of the plan, and I believe it could be very useful for you all to take a look at that when you're talking about decreasing or keeping Lorton Road at the same, number of lanes, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Wendy. Angelique?
I added some comments in the chat and trying to take all the information in. I didn't have access. I'm not sure if it was sent out for the VDOT plan. So hopefully we can get a copy of those maps so we can see the different study areas. Specifically interested in the one that looks like it was going to be connecting a highway from Furnace Road past my house. I think that was version number 3.
Okay.
That's from Gunston Cove Road.
Yeah,
Would go
those are
right
all,
between-
those are conceptual things that we tested, but we're not married to any of them. That's why we wanted to get feedback from y'all. Were there any that you liked? Were there any that you didn't like? In terms of the local grid connection, what about the one that connects the VRE station to Lorton Lorton Marketplace? It kind of goes through an environmentally sensitive area. Is that something that we should consider? It was actually pretty effective in terms of spreading the trips out.
I went back and looked at the email to see if I missed the presentation, but it was hard just seeing it on the screen for the very first time. So if we get the presentation, I'm happy to go through it and provide my assessment, my comments. I took some screenshots what I could, but looking it up on my monitor was a little challenging to take it all in and digest to have an opinion. But to answer your questions more succinctly, I would say as I am going in the opposite direction in the morning and the afternoon than Christine, because I'm coming from the area and going Lorton Road and going towards 123 in the morning, and in the afternoon coming the opposite way. So I do experience traffic. People are bypassing 95, cutting down Lorton Road to back up to the traffic because they're probably trying to go into the city or in the direction that Christine is going to on Route 1. That doesn't impact me as much, but I would say 6 lanes. I would ask the task force or VDOT to look at other traffic calming techniques other than changing the lanes. Because I think you remember my analogy to Frogger, just trying to cross Lorton Road. Something as simple as better signage, more profound definition of what is a crosswalk, better timing to cross the lane. And I noticed in Stephen's mapping, when we've been talking about this, the area that I live in off of Lorton Road and Windermere Hill to 5th Place, that's not the core study area. But in Stephen's map, it looks like my neighborhood is in the jagged area, even though non-core, it showed up on his mapping area. So I didn't want to take up meeting time to ask that question. So that was interesting. And I also wrote a couple of emails to talk about if we're going to look at calming Lorton or bringing things into Lorton, we really still need to fix why is there so much congestion on 95 South at the Lorton exit? And I noticed something is happening because they're putting new signs up there that's telling trucks that they can't park there, because that's what they were doing. But for the four-wheel trucks to park there, it just shows that there was enough real estate to add another turning lane, and just have 2 right turning lanes onto Lorton Road would calm that backup, in my opinion. And like someone else said, I am also not an engineer. But I heard you did say, Tom, a couple of times that some areas were of your study did not get touched because of budget concerns, or a lack of budget. But I was expecting the getting into Lorton off of 95 to be included in the mapping, and I didn't see it on any of the charts.
I mean, I-95 was in our model. The interchange with Lorton Road was in our model. So all those trips are accounted for. When we get to the point of deciding on some of the larger scale mitigations, our consultant will dive into the intersections and look at the intersection of the southbound off ramp, for example. That's been an intersection that I've been hearing about for 6, 7 years now. So maybe we could try to fix it at the intersection level. We're trying to take baby steps so that we don't go over budget. And tonight's a good meeting. I think I have some information to go back to the consultant with. But yeah, we will eventually look at that intersection and other intersections in Lorton to get a little bit more fine-grained.
I guess I'm just concerned that if we currently have 6 lanes and we go down to 4, it's going to impact the residents that have to live here versus the commuters that potentially can just stay on the backed up 95 or 123 anyway. So trying to look at what are we really looking to gain versus help hurting the local residents, because I feel like I will be hurt by going down to 4 lanes. And then I'll stop there.
Thank you, Angelique. Mr. Sargent.
Thanks. I just had one other thought. I think one of the things you're going to get going forward, if you haven't heard it before, are the concept of pedestrian bridges in those crowded areas of traffic. And it may be worth having some consideration ahead of time, pros and cons, so that you're not suddenly taken by it and you have to fit it in at the last minute. I have a feeling you're going to get some questions about that. And I'm not promoting them either way, but I just think that's going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Thank you. Does that help, Tom?
I think so. I think so. Cool.
I'm available to meet next week. Just kidding. Just really kidding.
Okay. Steve, what else do we have?
I think that's it for tonight. We have notes, and we've taken notes, and again, not next month, but in November, we'd want to come to you all with the straw man plan text and just see, I guess kind of come together again as a task force and kind of see where things are headed, see if there's some consensus, some more consensus that needs to be built when it comes to not only the, I guess the number of lanes on Lorton Road, but then some of these other things, like what if the language is really capturing and aligning with that vision that you adopted. I guess it's been 2 summers ago now, so that'll be the big thing. Just coming together and trying to build consensus off of that before we plow forward and finalize the plan text.
Can we get the presentation from tonight emailed out to everyone?
Definitely will.
Okay. And then if before our next meeting, if we could get anything sent out, kind of 3 to 4 days in advance, it'd be really good to be able to review. Control. To review before the next meeting. So I think we can come in with more questions.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's it, unless everybody has anything else.
I guess the other thing, because of the depth of these conversations, and again, because we don't want to be in a position where we are getting kicked out of the community center at this time. There's so much detail and depth in these conversations. I think it's probably best for us to do virtual again for this next meeting as well.
We're gonna go check it out. It's handy for the presentations, I guess, and I know that most of those places have time limits, and it's 9:06, and we probably would have been kicked out. Is a logistical issue.
Yeah.
There are, I guess, sometimes where it's advantageous to be able to be in person. And there are, I think, are other.
Yeah, there's a big Dollar Tree right next to where the Savers is, so.
Gil, can you mute us? We can hear Claudia.
While we're there.
Or another option, if we do meet in person, would just be to try to start earlier in the evening. If everyone could, that's I guess that's the big question. If I guess we're on 2.5 hours now, and we've usually been trying to stop at the community center by 8:30. So, and that was starting at 6:30. So I don't know if there'd be an opportunities to we're open to suggestions from our end. We could be there, we could be anywhere at any time. So
I'm okay either one. I don't know how everybody else feels. Just go around the room, Linwood.
I would just say I don't care either way, but this we're well over 2.5 hours at this point, and these are pretty miserable when they're that long. I would much rather have more shorter meetings when we can focus in on stuff. So if I got to make all the decisions about everything, I would have you present the text at the next meeting, not encourage a lot of comments about us. Give it a couple weeks to absorb it after it's been presented to us and why you did this and why you did that, and then come back for another meeting and try to target the meeting times to 1.5 hours. Again, these 2 hours and 38 minutes and counting at this point is pretty miserable.
Tim Sargent.
Obviously, Linwood has never been to a planning commission meeting. We can go for 8. I'm going to defer to the group. Whatever works best. There's some convenience and flexibility in being able to do it at home because you can make adjustments to the slides and anything else you need as you go. But if you want it in person, that's fine with me too.
Christine? Unmute.
You're on mute.
There we go. So it all depends on the day. I know for Peyton and I, we had a long day and I had 8 minutes before I got home and called into this meeting. So it all depends. I think if we tried to keep things a little tighter, we wouldn't need to be going through this for 2.5 hours. And also if we had it ahead of time, we could get notes down and get our questions together. But I think we could tighten things up and get it down to at least an 1.5 hours. So I'm good with either in person or virtual, but my preference is probably virtual.
Thank you, Wendy.
I agree, and I do believe that a lot the amount of comments was due to the length between from our last meeting to now. So we had a lot of ground to cover, but that won't be the case for the next meeting. But as far as the question is concerned, I much prefer virtual. If we have to do in person, I can make it happen as well. But yeah, my preference would definitely be virtual with the reader heads.
Thank you, Wendy. Tim?
I'm fine with virtual as well, as long as I think Linwood's idea wasn't bad, which is that we should be thinking about not trying to have it all in one. It's been a long time, as Wendy said, and then trying to then pick all this up at once and then trying to follow all of it and try to make it. We should probably make it a couple of times, just repeat it and break it down, break it up a little bit. but virtual's fine.
Dale?
I can't talk because I'm upstairs. Virtual is just fine.
Thank you. Angelique?
Virtual is fine. I agree with the theme. If we have to read aheads on time, more frequent meetings, and keeping the duration to like an hour and a half.
Thank you. Does that get enough info there, Steve?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. I know it's been a long evening. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Go ahead, Christine.
Just one final thing. We're talking, Linwood and Tim were talking about having a little bit of extra time. And also while that's happening, I'm trying to push staff to get this done sooner so that we have this wrapped up at the PC and the board by no later than the end of March. So I don't want to, I know none of us want to drag this out any longer than we have to. So if we can condense in places, I would love to be able to condense this in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're talking about extending it versus, maybe having some back-to-back within a couple of weeks or something.
Yeah, we can meet more than once every 5 months. We can meet like twice or in a week or two. That's fine.
Okay.
Don't be scared in the meeting, Nick. Don't be scared.
I'm trying. All right, Steve, are we good to wrap it up?
I'm done.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Right. Good night.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody. Good to see y'all. All right, thanks.